And we're live.
And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to the first of many Healthy Dog Expo podcasts. I'm Dr. Lori Koger. My guest today is Hanna from Evermore Pet Food. And we are talking today about controversial pet food ingredients, namely ones that are found in Evermore. Welcome, Hanna.
Hi. Thank you for getting that. You're one of the few people that actually gets it. I did not know I was the first. So
you are the first of the year. And just to add to the excitement, Expo tickets will be available online tomorrow, where there will be a Black Friday special. We have now a VIP program where you're going to get some extra cool stuff. We have an upgraded buffet lunch instead of the dreaded sandwich box lunches, and all sorts of other cool stuff. So the Expo is going to be better than ever.
Yay. Well, I know we're going to be there. So
you're going to be there.
I'm very excited to be there.
Are you hosting the VIP
brunch? I am hosting the VIP brunch.
So on Sunday morning, you will have the VIPs, only 50 of them. We'll be having breakfast with you and learning more about whatever topic we choose and just having a great time.
It'll be fun. Give me a microphone. I'll find something to do with it. So
all right, I love it. Well, let's do something with it.
Yeah. So today's topic, I decided to go the route of the ingredients people give us a hard time about in our dog food, right? And those are going to be our safflower oil, our oats and barley, and our added zinc gluconate, right? So everyone will, sometimes you read an entire list of dog food and you're just like, why is that one thing there? Why is that one thing there? This whole food looks so great, but I don't like this thing. I heard this thing was bad. So oftentimes this will happen and customers will, reach out to us and say, okay, why is this here? And it's great when we have the opportunity to explain and educate. And then usually they walk away with, oh, okay, I get it. I'll buy this food. But sometimes people have such fixed ideas about certain ingredients that they'll discount. And this isn't just our food, right? Like
it happens with sardines of all. People are like, I can't feed sardines. There's salt in them. Yeah. Well, yes, this is a fish that swims in the ocean. Salt is part of the package, and it's okay. And there's so many different ways to feed our animals and different foods to use and ways to get to what you want the finished product to be. And that's what you're doing with these seed oils.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, in Evermore, and I think in most better foods, every ingredient is there for a reason. We're not going to have this beautiful ingredient list and then put something in it that's like ruining our food and killing dogs. Yeah. So let's start with seed oils and I just want to point out what we're talking about. We're human grade food. Everything that I like to discuss not only applies to dogs, it also applies to us. So it's really important to kind of get in that mentality that we can think critically about things, for both species. So seed oils, if anyone is on the internet, on TikTok, on Instagram, you've probably been seeing a lot lately about how seed oils are really bad. They cause inflammation. They're going to give you cancer. They're going to lead to an early death rate. There's just so many things about how seed oils are terrible. First of all, I want to point out that most of the recent kind of brouhaha around seed oils is coming from people promoting a carnivore diet for humans. So yeah, let that sink in that the influencers really putting stuff out there are promoting that people eat diets that are almost exclusively meat. So, I don't know.
No.
I don't know if that's where I'm going to take my nutritional advice. So the first, when you get information, I think that the first thing that you have to look at is the source of the information, right? And if someone is trying to sell either a lifestyle or a product, you have to just think that they're going to be conveniently sharing information that kind of fits in with that, right? I'm trying to sell a product too, so please take everything I say with a grain of salt. But when it comes to assessing ingredients like this in general, I think that there's like 3 factors that we need to look at, right? The quality of the ingredient involved, the
Mhm.
purpose, why is this ingredient being used, and the context, right? So the quality of ingredients in Evermore is very high. When we use seed oils, we use they're organic and they're high linoleic. These are not like cheap ingredients that are easy to find.
Western oil.
You cannot find this in a grocery store. It took us a very long time to find
Oh.
organic high linoleic safflower oil. So, right, that's the quality. We're using a really high
Mhm.
quality version of it.
Mhm.
The purpose, right? Why do these dog foods, some of them are really high quality. Why do they have seed oil? It's for that linoleic acid, which is an essential fatty acid.
Not an omega-3.
It's an omega-6, right? And you
Omega-6.
hear omega-6s and you're like, "Oh no,
Ooh,
omega-6s.
no.
Omega-6s are bad."
You
But that's
need some. You
we
need
need
some.
omega-6s. We need omega-6s. Dogs need omega-6s. They are an essential fatty acid. Your body needs them. And then the third thing, purpose, context, right? Did I say context?
You did
Uh,
say
I
context.
did say context. Okay. Oh, but I didn't explain context, right? Where it appears. So, seed oil in a list of like a gently cooked dog food, like it's there, is very different from a seed oil in a deep
Mhm.
fryer. So, that's just something I want people to think about as we go through this.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to start with quality. The reasons people freak out about seed oils in general, and it's pointed
Mhm.
out a lot, is that seed oils are likely to be genetically modified, right? That is the first piece of things. Safflower oil and sunflower oil, which you will see, hi Debbie, which you will
Just
see
read my mind, Diane.
which you will see widely used, right? Those are from crops that are never genetically modified. When you see things like canola or soy or corn oil, right? Those are more likely to be GM crops. So I just in terms of reading labels yourselves, you want to look at the difference of those oils. Then there's the extraction process involved in oils, and this is important for home cookers too. Um, so conventional oils are generally extracted using hexane, which is a petroleum-based solvent.
Mhm.
They use it to extract the oils from the seed. So that's the reason why a lot of people, you don't want solvents in your oils,
No.
right?
No.
They do go through a process called bleaching, which is less scary than it sounds. People are like, "Oh no, bleaching! They're pouring bleach in the oil." That's not what it is. It's actually they use diatomaceous earth in that process.
Okay.
So that's a little less scary when you see language. They're like they bleach it. So
Mhm.
just want to put that into perspective
Right,
for people.
right.
And if you're looking at an oil that's an organic oil, it's expeller press. There can only be mechanical processes. There cannot be chemicals in those processes. And if it's organic, there also can't be GMOs in these processes.
That's important.
That is very important. Then another issue that people have with seed oils, and this actually really I think comes into play the most when you're looking at kibbles,
Mhm.
as far as dog food's concerned, or if you go to a restaurant and hit up the French fries, which despite everything I know about seed oils, I'm not going to stop eating French fries.
Well,
They're too,
unlike kibble, it's not
yeah.
being eaten by you
It's
every
yeah,
day
it's
of the
not being eaten by me every day. So, when you look at seed oils, there's the rancidity factor, and much
week.
is brought up about rancidity. So that's going to be a storage issue. A lot of seed oils do have added preservatives to kind of stave that off, but a
Mhm.
lot don't. And even over time, things go rancid, right? And when you have a kibble bag that like you're opening and closing, and maybe you get like a 50-pound bag, then that rancidity is going to be more of an issue. If
Mhm.
you're a smaller fresh company and you're buying amounts that are stored properly and used in shorter amounts of time, then that rancidity isn't so much of a concern. Then there is the temperature issue, right?
Right.
A lot of people, there are these compounds that are formed at high temperatures that are harmful. Now, these tend to be formed, like the worst of them are formed when the oil hits its smoke point.
Mhm.
And the whole reason seed oils are used in human food is because they have a very, very high smoke point. Um, Olive oil, which is generally recommended as a healthy oil,
Yeah.
if you're sauteing vegetables and you have olive oil and that olive oil starts to smoke, it is actually way worse for you
Yeah.
than if you're using like a canola oil and it
Mhm.
doesn't smoke. So I think that that's something people in
Yeah, and
food
isn't
science.
olive oil one of the lower smoke
It
points
is
of
a very low smoke point. Yeah.
common oils out there?
Yeah, it's a really healthy oil, it's great,
Yeah.
but you have to use it, you wanna use it in a salad dressing
Yes, I was gonna say. Oh,
and not to fire up your wok. So,
yeah.
but again, when you're looking at a fresh, gently cooked food or raw food or whatever food might be using a seed oil, at a low temperature, there's like nothing
Not
bad
a
that's gonna be happening from like a chemical standpoint
mhm.
there. Where else were this is such a big topic, and I just want to go into the scientific literature around it too.
Okay, science time.
Science time and how people perceive science, right?
Right.
Because a lot of people will do a lot of research in looking for their pet food. I think people put way more time and energy, at least people in our space
Mhm.
who really are taking the time to educate themselves.
Right.
They'll put so much time and energy into researching pet food, but if you really look, there's just so much of a difference of a quality of information out there. You can find if you Google like seed oil dogs. This is actually really interesting. There
Oh,
aren't really there aren't really studies
no.
specifically to dogs with seed oil. So you're really going to be looking at studies on mice, and most of the seed oil studies that sort of demonstrate that seed oils have potentially like negative and that linoleic acid. I actually want to dial it into linoleic acid,
Okay.
which is why we're using safflower oil and sunflower oil are the two highest natural sources
Okay.
of linoleic acid. So we're using it in a very targeted way. Sorry, I'm in a little bit all over the place here with this.
All right.
It is a big topic. So if you look at the scientific literature around seed oils, there are studies that are done on mice, and most of the studies that point out potentially negative effects of linoleic acid are these studies done on mice, or they're done in vitro, which means they're done on cells in a
Mhm.
laboratory. They're not done on dogs, or they're done on people, which is actually much closer to a dog
Yeah.
than a mouse. Interesting thing, we actually know a lot of what we know about human nutrition based on studies done on dogs.
Interesting.
Yeah, beagles were used a lot in nutritional
Mhm.
research, which makes me very sad
Yeah.
that they did research on beagles. And a lot of sort of the inferences that we draw
Mhm.
about what is or isn't good for dogs is actually done on these sort of like superfood studies that
Mhm.
a lot of them are with people. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of back and forth. So if we're looking at a model for a dog, sort of these studies done with human beings and on human beings are probably more in line with what a dog needs than what a mouse needs.
Right. Right.
So those are like the studies that are done in animals. Then if we look at studies done with people, right? This is interesting. There is not any credible scientific evidence that seed oils are bad, or even that omega 6 is,
Mhm.
in isolation is bad, that linoleic is bad. Not a single study that is credible. Recently, there was a meta-analysis done by Harvard that looked at 38 different studies and over 900,000 participants.
Wow, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
and they did a lot of, and I'm not gonna pretend I understand the math involved, right? Like like I'm not even gonna pretend. I can read abstracts, I can get the gist, but I'm not gonna look at those math charts and be able to make heads or tails of them. I don't know, maybe you're better at that, Lori.
No.
Yeah.
Um, so you have safflower oil and sunflower oil.
No, I was just mentioning sunflower
Oh,
oil because,
because of its
because
con
a lot of brands will kind of similarly use it in a similar capacity. So I don't want to just talk about our own food. I want to kind of
okay.
give people tools to.
And is it easy to get high quality sunflower oil?
Sunflower oil, I don't know about. Safflower oil, extremely hard. There are two varieties of safflower oil. There's high linoleic, which is what we're using for that
Right.
linoleic acid. That's an omega 6.
Mhm.
And there's high oleic. which is
Okay.
an omega-9. And you'll see high oleic is what you're going to get on the shelves of grocery stores, right? That's what people want. I believe that's because it's a monounsaturated and not a
Mhm.
polyunsaturated acid, but
Right.
I could be wrong. I think that that's why. But the high linoleic safflower oil, extremely hard to find. Organic high linoleic safflower
Takes it to
oil,
another level.
yeah, next level. Allison, my business partner who does our sourcing, I think this was like a multi-year quest, right? So we did start out with conventional high linoleic safflower oil,
Mhm.
knowing that safflowers are a low GMO crop, and it was our goal to
Right.
improve, and we did it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important, that nothing is static, that you kind of move in a direction that's, better and better, always raising the bar for yourself.
Always raising the bar and keeping up with what current research is showing, what benefits we're discovering.
Absolutely. And what fears maybe aren't founded, going
Oh,
back to
yeah.
that seed oil thing. I think that because there's so much fear mongering around it, and you have to think about like who's benefiting from it, right? And
Follow the money.
then there's the whole question of like correlation versus causation, right?
Right.
So a lot of these human studies are, the ones that people cite a lot when they're looking at seed oil, they're looking at overall diets, right? They're looking at overall diet quality. And yes, diets, our human diets that are very high in seed oils tend to be diets that are very high in fried foods. They're diets that, they're ultra processed. Seed oils are used in ultra processed food a lot
Sure.
because they're a good way to improve flavor and texture for
Mhm.
people. We like fat, right? and and seed oil fat is a lot cheaper than an
Then
animal
animal
fat.
origin. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are plenty of arguments that can be made. Yes, these diets that are high in seed oil, they're correlated with cancer, they're correlated with heart disease, and that you're looking at maybe not the most legitimate source of information
Mhm.
when these two concepts, when this is confused, when, correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right. Right.
So it's important to untangle. It's like, yes, since we've industrialized things and put in more seed oil, yeah, we're getting sicker. Our dogs are getting sicker. But is it because of the thing itself or the way it's being used?
The way it's being used
Yeah,
and other things that come along with it that are factors.
exactly. So I think that when you're assessing something, when you're looking at information, when you're looking at a claim that's being made, you have to step back and say, hold on, what's the bigger picture here?
Mhm.
What other factors are involved?
Exactly.
So that's one thing. And then it's also, if you are diving into studies, you have to look at the source of these, like where are these studies coming from? And
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean it's a source you like, you know?
But, when you look at the conflicts of interest, every scientific paper has a declaration of any of the researchers who have ties to everything, any companies, any institutions, what have you. And sometimes there'll be no conflict of interest, and sometimes it's something like
Laundry list.
Dr. Freeman has been paid by
Oh, yeah.
Mars and
That is an example of a terrible study, right? And I think
yes.
that I was gonna bring that up on grain, but I think we can go there
We can
now.
just segue into grains
That is
because
a really good
the whole
segue. That is a really good segue into grain.
the whole DCM debacle was, in my opinion, a lot of shitty science and
Oh,
a
it
lot of
really
conflicts of
so
interest.
many conflicts of interest, so much bad science, and so many leaps, in terms of studies not really saying
Mhm.
what is being promoted as they're saying. And that's another thing I even see in the seed oil thing too. It's like people will cite these studies in their crazy blogs, but
Mhm.
not expect you to go read them. Because if you actually
Yeah.
read the study,
It doesn't say what they said it
it
said.
doesn't say like the boutique exotic
Oh,
grain
yeah.
free. The boutique and exotic kills me. It's like I think Taste of the Wild was the dogs that like the most.
Well, and Merrick was on there. Hello,
Yeah,
Merrick
it's
is
like
owned by Mars or whoever.
these are not boutique and exotic foods,
No,
right?
not
um,
by any stretch of the imagination.
yeah. And I mean, I'm really glad that the FDA came out and debunked it.
But,
But the problem
Hannah,
is,
it's
the
still
problem is, yeah,
still
sorry.
there.
Oh my God, that's what I was gonna say. Once a genie is out of a bottle, you cannot put it back in. I mean, it's the same
Oh,
thing with the cereal thing. It's the same thing, with anything. As soon as something is scary and put out there in the world, that is the thing that your brain will latch onto. And that's normal. That's
yes,
a
it is. Yeah,
it's
and the
a
retraction will get printed on page 42.
yeah, and then it's like we still get emails like multiple times a week being like,
Mhm.
well, my vet said but the food has to have grain, my vet said the food doesn't it's we actually get it on both sides,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which actually makes me really glad. When it was happening, I was like, thank goodness we have two formulas that
I
have
see
oats
the
and barley.
veterinary hospitals posting signs, in their exam rooms, avoid these foods, or posting it on their social media pages. And it's like, did you not know even FDA walked it back?
Yeah, and they did, wasn't there a study where they went back from, like, the '70s or something? It was, like, some crazy amount of time, and they looked at DCM rates, and they
Mhm.
were consistent. Like,
Yeah,
even with the introduction of the grain-free diet, like, nothing had changed in terms of
right.
how much DCM was happening. I bet it's gonna go down as more and more, like,
Think
fresh
so?
and I hope so. I hope it goes down as fresh
Well,
foods
as
become
fresh
more
food
popular.
takes off, because
Yeah, because I hope so. I mean, that's my theory is that it will actually as these foods that they were vilifying take off,
Mhm.
it would be like the ultimate vindication if it goes down. So,
Without a doubt.
yeah, but that does segue nicely to grains.
Yes.
So, in Evermore, we use organic oats and barley. There's that quality proof organic. Context, it's at, the, close to the end of our ingredient list,
Mhm.
actually. It's about 4.5% of the entire formulation is combined oats and barley and purpose. So oats and barley have, some really nice nutrients. They're high in manganese, which is actually really hard to get naturally.
Yes.
Selenium, and I'm sure a lot of you love mushrooms and are familiar with beta glucans.
Mhm.
They are one of the highest sources of
Really?
beta glucans. Well, there's multiple forms of beta glucans. I think people don't realize this. There's beta glucans in mushrooms.
Mhm.
There's beta glucans in yeast, and there are beta glucans, in grains like oats and barley,
Yeah.
and they're chemically different. They're all a little bit different.
Right.
And the beta glucans in oats and barley, they're actually the only ones that kind of like act as a prebiotic. So, it just like an interesting aside. So that's
Yeah,
that's not the
that is.
that's not the reason they're in there, but it's a nice little bonus.
Side benefit.
It is a really nice benefit. And they add that soluble fiber and they do add those nutrients that are hard for us to get
Mhm.
otherwise. So
Yeah.
that is why they are there. Now, I'm sure a lot of what we get, and I know you said this too, Laurie, is that dogs don't have a need for carbohydrates, right?
And I want y'all to remember this day, because I'm going to channel my inner psychic. There is going to be so much research coming out that states that dogs benefit from slightly higher carbohydrate amounts than most fresh food feeders are feeding. And those of you who follow any of my projects with Susan Garrett and her dog, that dog with no carbs was a train wreck. This dog with carbs, and not to excess, not to the levels that you find in kibble, is running at the national level competitively in agility. She was just down in Florida at the UKI nationals, I believe. So just remember, I said it first. Carbs
And
are going to happen.
I'm so happy to hear you say it. And I think that part of the reason why there's been such a firm anti-grain, anti-carb stance in the holistic community, one, not only do they, not need the carbohydrates on like this purely like biological basis as in they'll stay alive.
Right.
But it's sort of as that counterpoint to big pet where this stuff inhabits the front of the list, where everything's like front loaded
Mhm.
with corn and soy and wheat. So I think it's really, it's you want to take a position against that.
Right.
And it's really easy to take kind of like the opposite position instead of to be like, oh, okay, like, well, what's the middle ground here?
Right.
Where
Find
do
a
we,
way.
yeah, and what works? And we all know, as you also like to say, Lori, feed the dog in front of you.
Yeah,
You say that all the time, and I love it. So,
yeah.
but oh, shoot,
And
I like
and
totally lost my.
also, I think one of the things that sets your food, as well as all the other ones that make Susan Thixton's list, which you have done for many years. And this is a shameless plug. Go to truthaboutpetfood.com. And next month, the 2024 list will be out. And these are foods that Susan would feed her own dog that she's done all the due diligence on. Um, there are not feed grade ingredients. It's feed grade corn, feed grade wheat, that's causing recalls that they're using in kibble. This is not what we're talking about in these caliber of foods. Whole different ball game. Not loaded with mycotoxins, not loaded with pesticides and other chemical agents.
Which we do test for
You,
mycotoxins. Well,
yeah,
they're part of like a bigger toxin test that we do, but we do test for like aflatoxins, and so when we're doing our food release, we know that it's not there.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh, let me two things.
yeah, looking at the questions.
So, Apple the Golden, you sent me an email. I have not forgotten you. So I will get to you hopefully with an idea.
Hi, Apple. We met Apple the Golden. Oh, I thought I did explain that, but I'll get back to it.
Yeah, I think she just joined.
Oh, okay. So oats and barley have a lot of amazing benefits. First of all, they include nutrients that are really hard to get naturally, including manganese. Manganese is actually like a really difficult one. And selenium, as well as being an amazing source of soluble fiber and beta glucans. So, and in our experience, and this comes down to the soluble fiber, but when we have dogs with like really dicey tummies, a lot of times they do a lot better
Yeah,
on our formulas that include oats and barley, even though our other, our other grain-free formulas still have lots of ingredients that have that soluble fiber, but something about the oats and
yeah.
barley.
Every dog's going to be an individual and different fibers. What vegetables do you get your fiber from?
Well, we got all of our leafy greens. We
Okay.
have, our organic. Oh God, now I'm gonna have to remember our ingredients. It's robust. We have apples. We
Do you
have,
use any squashes?
yeah, we use
Hard squash, summer squash?
yeah, well, we use in our grain-free recipe, we use butternut squash. Um,
Nice.
we actually use sweet potatoes in our non-grain-free recipe. So we have a good mix of things that will definitely help things pass through your dog.
Well, and benefit the microbiome.
And benefit the microbiome and provide amazing like flavonoids, antioxidants,
Mhm.
things that are really, really good. And actually, that's something else I want to point out about the no need for carbs. A lot of times you hear, and this just kind of always bugged me a little when you say like a dog has no biological need for carbohydrates. You also say, okay, well, a dog has no biological need for the anthocyanins in blueberries or apples, or they have no biological need
For
for
much.
all of that, for most of the stuff that we're telling people to give dogs. So it's just interesting. It's like, where do you draw that line? And
Mhm.
having not a need for it
Right.
is, is kind of the qualifier for whether or not they should have it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
food for thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
So I think that covers your grains pretty nicely.
yeah. Oh God, did we get through all of the individual ingredients? Oh no, supplements.
Yes, we're
Supplements.
on to the supplements,
We're
and
on to the
this
supplements.
is something, when I'm formulating and when I'm looking at products, I love not seeing that laundry list of supplements that you see like on a bag of kibble that I know is a standard vitamin mineral premix and, you know, just yuck.
Oh yeah.
Um, and but I recognize the need sometimes for a supplement.
Oh yeah.
And how many do you actually have in your food? One. I
Unless you count eggshell powder, but it's only an eggshell powder. It's a supplement insofar as it gets mixed in with our zinc. But I just, I don't know if I count it because we'd be feeding, if you were doing like a raw diet that you're home preparing, you'd be throwing in like whole eggshells or bone.
Right.
Or, so I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I think of a supplement as something that could come in a capsule or tablet form.
Yeah, well, you can get eggshell powder in a
Yes, you
capsule or
can,
tablet form. So
but
yeah, I mean,
still a little closer.
yeah, I mean, it's fully naturally occurring, right? So it's not, you can take it supplementally, but I
Mhm.
always wonder if where people kind of
Yeah.
perceive that. But I mean, most people are thrilled about our eggshell powder.
Mhm. They'd
So
rather see that than cheap bone meal.
oh, yeah,
Or
absolutely. I mean, don't get, and people always ask us, we are, when we have our cat food, I think we're putting grass-fed bone meal in
Mhm.
that. But yeah, that was an aside. Back to supplements. So yeah, we have a minimal supplementation philosophy, and we always have. Actually, from the time that we started making Evermore, it was always like, we want to do as much with real food as possible. Like, we don't want to have to add supplements. We believe that your nutrition should come from food. At the time, it was radical. Like, nobody cared. This was
Wow.
2009.
Yeah.
Like, how many foods can you think of in 2009 that like that was their mission to from a commercial diet? Like, how many
Yeah.
can you think of? Like, I don't think anyone cared.
Nobody cared.
Yeah. We were consulting with someone on like kind of the very first release of Evermore.
Mhm.
And we were ready to like, discuss a premix because we thought we needed something and we did need a couple of things. But she gave us this like long list of things that we were
Mhm.
definitely gonna need to put in the food. We're like, hold up. Let's just get a baseline here.
Yeah.
Let's test it. And we needed almost like a fraction of
Oh,
what we were told that was going to be put in. And then this very well, highly regarded, I can't say who, but like pet food industry formulator who did work for like Big Pet, um, came back. She looked at our numbers and she was like, huh, I suppose it is theoretically possible to get your nutrients from
yeah.
food.
And you will have boarded nutritionists tell you, "No, you can't properly design a diet without these things."
Yeah, and it is possible. Um, and there is a lot of discussion about, okay, these standards were made for these highly processed diets.
Mhm.
Do we even need these same standards for, fresh diets? And I think a lot of like the intuitive consensus amongst the holistic community is like, nah, it's probably different, right? But we don't really have the research to back that
Right.
up.
So we
And
use them as a starting point.
yeah, they're really good guidelines, and for us as food manufacturers, we have to meet these guidelines.
Right.
Like,
The difference between the law and science.
yeah,
And
it's
you have to consider every state you sell in sometimes.
yeah, every state, and they all have different regulations. And here's the thing I think that's confusing to people and confusing to a lot of people, especially in the fresh community, is that people think AFCO is non-regulatory, right? These profiles come from a non-regulatory body.
Right. Right.
So people think that, oh, it's just some marketing claim companies make about AFCO because AFCO doesn't make the law. This isn't regulatory. Like, AFCO is optional. That is not the case.
No.
Like,
No,
unfortunately,
AFCO, in a sense, does make the law because they publish their guidelines and then the states adopt them.
correct. They
And it's
adopt
like
them as law.
as law. So in a sense,
They do.
they
And
do, they
these
do, and they are
and
a regulatory body.
and that is the board of which
Yeah,
consists of sort of like big pet industry representatives. So
yes,
it's really kind of dicey, and AFCO doesn't change its regulations very often. I know that
no.
you're going through this with the copper.
We're fighting copper, yeah,
So,
and they're not listening.
which is it's really unfortunate because the
And
latest
dogs are I mean, you
dogs are dying.
dogs are dying, and if you go to their various copper storage groups on Facebook, I mean, it is devastating what they have to go through to get the diagnosis, to know how to treat it. It's huge, and there's just no reason for it.
Yeah, no, it really, and if you look at, in Europe, they have an organization called FEDIAF.
Right.
And I don't know what does FEDIAF have a maximum copper?
I believe it does.
Okay, I know that
I
we formulate
I liked formulating to FEDIAF.
we formulate our our guideline, like our Evermore's formulation meets AFCO, NRC, and FEDIAF. So
Well,
we've
and
covered our
FEDIAF
bases.
breaks down activity levels better.
Yeah. Yeah, and that obviously we don't have a million different stage diets, but
Right.
it's pretty cool that they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of why we're interested in animal diet formulator because they do all kinds of cool stuff with that.
well, animal diet formulator will probably be one of the VIP sessions
Oh, nice.
where
That's
where
really
we're
cool.
we're still working on it, but where you will bring your laptop and be in a room with some very experienced people from ADF coaching you on how to formulate a diet.
Which is very cool, and for those of
Very
you home
cool
cookers,
to have the big guns there saying, "Try this,
yeah,
try
I
that."
mean, I have a dog food company, and I still think and I wanna have animal diet formulator. It seems
Yeah.
like it's such a
It
cool
is.
start
I
to
don't
it.
know why anybody would use, I know many people use Pet Diet Designer. It's cheap. It's $20. I don't know why you would use that when the data in ADF is superior and you have so many choices. Let's say we're talking about salmon. They've got the different types of salmon, different locations. How was it prepared? Is it frozen? Is it canned? Is it cooked? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and
it's so
they have
much.
grass-fed versus, like,
Yeah,
conventional. They have
yeah.
they really have, like, a
All my
huge,
copper data is now in ADF,
which is
so
awesome.
which is awesome. So you wanna look up the copper in your freeze-dried beef liver treats? Well, I put 6 of them in there, and so you can know. Information is always, always good.
Yeah. I have to
No
say,
one says Pet Diet Designer is very difficult. It really is.
I've never seen that. I've only seen ADF, so,
And don't waste
don't even
your
bother
time.
with that diet
Well, and
designer.
my personal beef, as you may know, I'm a Mac person, and Pet Diet Designer has been promising a Mac version for years, and they don't have it. It's like, you gotta have Windows for it. I
That's
won't go back.
and most people once you become a Mac, yeah, once you go Mac, you don't go back.
You don't go back.
Um, so, okay, back to supplements.
Back to
So
our yeah.
back to supplements. So, yeah, we do use that zinc. We know how we could hit it naturally without,
Mhm.
we don't have we're not an ancestral diet, right? Like these ancestral diets are like 85% meat. We're more at
Right.
65, and our diet works really, really well for
Mhm.
the dogs that it works really, really well
Yeah,
for.
and as we often say, feed the individual dog. Sorry, seltzer time.
Okay, I was like, "Did something break?" I was like, "Are my cats up to
No,
no good?" Because it seriously sounded like a breaking glass in the other
nope,
room.
it is lime seltzer. I don't drink cola, but maybe once a month, once every 2 months. So, I'm a seltzer girl.
I like seltzer too. So I have to say one of the highlights of last year for me at Healthy Dog Expo
Mhm.
was when Steve Brown came over
Oh,
and looked at our boxes and, like, looked at our formulas and was like, "This is very well researched."
mm,
And he was like, "Targeted supplementation, I like that." And that really that kind of, like, validated us because 'cause we've always been like, "Okay, we've got that one zinc left." And
yeah.
I'll go into exactly about that zinc in a minute.
Mhm.
And for a while, Alice and I have been like, "Okay, we wanna get rid of it. We wanna get rid of it. People don't like it." And we know, I mean, we could add oysters. That would get
Yeah,
rid of the zinc. We could add
but then people would be bitching that the oysters have salt in them. Sorry, guys.
or we could add
Not
nuts.
a not a G show.
I have 2 very good reasons that aren't
And
even that, or 1 very good reason that isn't
well,
even
and
that.
some dogs are sensitive to it.
Allergens and not for dogs, for
Yeah.
people. We had a cus
Oh, I
there
have
those are
that.
oysters and nuts, like shellfish and nuts, those are
Mhm.
2 of the most common
Very
allergens for human beings and 2 of the most fatal when people have them. We
oh,
had
wow.
we had a customer who had to stop using our food because her son was deathly allergic to eggs, and the
Oh,
dog licked the kid's face
and that was enough.
after eating. Kid went into anaphylactic shock and had to go to the
Oh my
hospital.
gosh. I
So,
never would have considered that.
right? Like, it's funny because 'cause we've always thought about the shellfish allergen piece of
Mhm.
things, but I didn't even think about eggs. We will come up with an egg-free formula one of these days, but it's just, all these considerations. So it's like, is it worth it for, and we might we might introduce other formulas that will put it in, but we're not changing our core line. So my mentality now about that zinc and me, unless we can, unless something comes up that makes sense, but it's sort of like If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, and you do source the highest
Oh,
quality,
yeah,
most
we source great,
reliable
and
product.
yeah, and now let's get to the quality point.
Yes.
Thank you, Lori, for keep bringing it back to how awesome we are, because I'll go off on tangents that have nothing to do with our food for
Thanks.
hours.
Okay.
Yeah, so supplements are a topic of a lot of, fear, especially because a lot of them come from overseas.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are like lower quality, and a lot of them are synthetic vitamins. Now we use zinc gluconate,
Right.
which is actually a naturally occurring substance. It's not like this is being invented out of thin air like a lot of
Mhm.
vitamins are. Zinc gluconate, you might know as zinc mineral salts,
Mhm.
and they are just a combination of zinc bonded to gluconic acid, which is basically fermented glucose. So it's not gluconic acid, glyconic acid, I don't remember. But
Yeah.
anyway, this is something you can find in nature. Ours is obviously
Yeah.
synthesized in a lab. So this is like, there's all different forms of zinc. Like we wouldn't use a zinc oxide, for example.
Right.
That is like like a not very bioavailable cheap form of zinc. Guys, if you see zinc oxide on a label, that
Put that
company
on the
is
shelf.
put it back on the shelf. Do not use something with an oxide. But oh, this will get me into a pet peeve about a dog food review site, not the one you and I were talking about earlier,
Okay.
actually. So Dog Food Advisor, and I will name and shame them. Dog Food Advisor published a review of us, and one of the things that they flagged as like a bad ingredient was our zinc gluconate, because, and this was in the thing, was that you should look for zinc amino acid chelate. So, or a chelated form of zinc. This
Related.
is a chelated form of zinc. It's just more specific. It's like it actually saying what chelation it
Right.
is. Because a
Right.
lot of times on labels, it'll say like zinc amino acid chelate, right? There's so many different forms of zinc
Yeah.
amino acid chelate, and this was just more specific. So I just want to say a lot of these review sites like don't
Well,
know what the heck
a
they're
lot
talking
of the
about.
internet doesn't know what it's talking about.
Yeah. Again, multiple review sites have dinged us for our seed oil. And again, saying that these are like cheap filler ingredients that are low quality without actually really knowing why companies use them, or, for example, that ours is not cheap, it's very expensive.
No. Oh.
But
You have a specific reason for it.
yeah, absolutely. So back to supplements.
Sure. Yeah.
So, some of the concerns about supplementation too are over supplementation. Again, we use such a minimal amount to, as Steve Brown said, targeted nutrition,
Mhm.
targeted supplementation.
Yeah.
When you see a huge laundry list, chances are that's just a flat across the board premix that's being added to a bunch of foods that don't
Yeah.
have that many good ingredients. And there's like a couple of
Or,
things,
processed or ultra processed
yeah,
product
yeah,
where
where it really needs it.
it needs it. Yeah.
Although I have to be honest, like, I've seen fresh foods
Mhm.
that still
Oh, yeah.
have
I
that
have too.
that's
And it's like, why are you using one of the ones I consulted for, who shall remain nameless, um, a cooked food and pretty decent quality ingredients and a conventional vitamin mineral premix because it was formulated by a PhD nutritionist who used to work for Colgate Palmolive, which owns Eukanuba and Imes and many other things. And it's like that's what they know because they only formulate processed foods. They formulate kibble, and they're like, "Oh, we dump this in and we'll make it right." And
and they might not even do the baseline testing that we do.
and they don't use Animal Diet Formulator. They
Yeah.
use some other crappy software. But I'm dropping things now.
That's okay. At least I'm
They
like, "What did my
put,
cat do?"
uh, it's just their standard. It's like they don't even think about it. Of do I need this? They just
They
dump
just
it in.
they just dump it in. Yeah, and I think that
And
that's
with ingredients or nutrients, I should say, that have no maximum, like copper, they don't care.
and that is harmful,
And let's say they're using beef liver. You'll see some foods or beef liver is the second or third ingredient, and you don't know if it's grass-fed or conventional. And then you'll see copper sulfate in the supplement list. It's like that's a recipe for excess copper. And so if you guys, fresh food, kibble, I don't care. If you see beef liver and copper supplement in this vitamin mineral premix, do not use that food.
Yeah, no, it's
End of story.
it can be really dangerous. Speaking of dangerous, another thing that is important to look at, if you see supplements that, are those fat soluble vitamins, right?
Mhm.
Vitamin A, I mean, A,
A,
D,
D,
and K.
and K.
Yeah, if you see a supplemental form of that, that's something you have to be really careful with, because you can have overages on that can
Right.
even kill dogs. I think a lot of you might remember the Hills recall,
All for vitamin D.
all for vitamin D. So there can be too much. So that's another reason why you
Right.
want to be, careful with that supplement inclusion. Something that we do. We do finished product testing on every single run, on batches from every single run. And one
And
of the
that's not cheap.
it's not there's a reason why Evermore's not cheap.
Yeah.
So
But
we do
that's quality control, and that's caring about your product.
it's important quality control. And one thing that we do, and I don't think any other company does this on as routine of a basis as we do a full mineral panel.
Mhm.
So we can well, it's an F9 mineral panel. I think there's minerals that aren't on it, but like it's like the standard like
Right.
APCO mineral panel. And that allows us to not only gauge kind of the, right, the seasonal shifts and things like our copper
Mhm.
copper levels, because we are dealing with beef liver in our beef formula. And in
Mhm.
these other there are natural variations that we need to keep tabs on. But
Right.
it also, sort of crosses that T, dots that I on our own premix inclusion. It makes us, we can tell, like, okay, if too much calcium, if too much of our calcium and zinc got dumped in, we would know.
Yeah.
So it's like a really nice,
And why isn't Hills doing that? Why did they well, that whole
well, they
recall.
don't have any money. They can't afford it.
They can have their own in-house laboratory for Pete's sake.
I
It's just carelessness.
yeah, I can't, yeah, I mean, like, it was, like, hundreds of thousands of pounds of food that was recalled. Like, how could they not figure that out?
Well, and the recall went from, like, if I recall correctly, from, like, October through January. They just kept recalling more and more
They
lots.
kept I think they kept finding, like, more and more
Yeah,
problems.
yeah.
So anyway,
So, and
we
just to back up in case anybody doesn't understand, fat-soluble vitamins stay in the fat in the dog's body. They're stored there. Water-soluble vitamins are excreted, so they need to be taken in every day. So water-soluble vitamins are like vitamin B, vitamin C. Um, I think those would be the most common because there's like 12 different B vitamins.
yeah.
But that's why we're getting excited about D, because it is fat-soluble, stored in the body.
Yeah, that's why they say people who take, like, too like, all these, like, various vitamin supplements have expensive urine because, like,
Mhm.
if you're taking too much of these water-soluble ones, it'll just get excreted.
Yeah,
So it's not harmful in that way that it is with those fat-soluble ones.
right.
So I wanna talk about sourcing on
Yes.
supplements. So this is interesting. We have Now that we're looking at cat food, this is sort of an interesting thing because we're doing an all life stages cat food, which I know
Mhm.
you're the Healthy Dog Expo. You don't care about cats, but
We
this
care about cats. We just focus on
you're
dogs.
focused on. And honestly, let's be honest, like cat people are not going to go to a healthy cat expo. Um,
The 2 crazy cat ladies talked to me about it, and I said, "You guys have CatCon, why don't you do it?"
well,
So,
I
I
think
don't know.
CatCon
Maybe
is like broader. I don't think it's not
CatCon
just
was broad.
about. I feel like it has to be broader, but I think it's not. I think it's not too far. I think it's coming.
It's coming.
I think it's gonna, but I don't
And
think
they'll
it's coming
they'll
for.
pull it off, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it's not coming for another couple of years, but I think it's gonna be a thing. I think people are gonna care as much about their
Mhm.
cats, but not right away.
Yeah.
But anyway, so for the cat food, it looks like we're gonna need to supplement with a few things. One of them
Mhm.
being thiamine. And
Right.
yeah, so thiamine is not manufactured outside of China. You cannot find there used to be a plant in Europe that doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
So anytime you see like, I think it's thiamine mononitrate, I never
That sounds
that
familiar.
right? It's thiamine mononitrate.
Yeah.
Anytime you see that on a label, that base vitamin came from China.
Mhm.
Now, what will happen is that they get to, and I don't, I'm actually not necessarily China bad. I just want to put that out there. I think that, like, crappy ingredients can come from anywhere.
Mhm.
Is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But when you have these like these supplements that can only be sourced from China, what happens is they'll go to, hopefully, they're going to a US blender, which is what we're gonna have to do. We're taking things to a US blender. The raw materials are tested coming in,
Yep.
then the final mix is blended. So, interestingly enough, and I've seen this from a lot of companies,
Mhm.
companies that like you would respect, companies that I respect, they'll say that everything comes from the US, even their supplements, because they're blended at a
Yeah.
US facility. And I think legally you can make a made in the US claim
Mhm.
if you're buying from a US vendor, even if that vendor is importing
Right.
from like a
Right.
foreign source. So I find that interesting, and it'll be interesting to see we know we're going to have to get these Chinese supplements. Like, we're all about transparency. So
Mhm.
we're definitely going to disclose that and that part of the
Yeah.
process. But
And, what choice do you have? A thiamine deficient cat is having problems.
oh yeah.
So you've got to do something.
Yeah, so there are cases, where it is completely necessary to supplement or, I'm not saying that this is a good thing and there's no way I'm promoting this at all, but let's take like a vegan dog diet, right?
Right.
It is physically impossible to get like the dog anything that they need, close to nearly what they need
Mhm.
without heavy supplementation.
Right.
Now, I don't think we should choose to feed a dog a vegan diet, but there are times, like very rare cases,
Right.
when dogs can't eat animal proteins. It happens. It's so like it is shocking to me that this happens.
Yeah.
But
But it's not, I mean, from vegan is a lifestyle
yep.
choice and sometimes a health choice for humans, but for dogs,
Yeah,
no.
no, absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to say I am not promoting a vegan diet at all for dogs, like whatsoever. But this would be a case like if you
But there
have
could
a
be a
dog.
medical
There
situation.
can be medical situations or not even vegan where just dogs need certain, like, blends of certain things that you
Mhm.
can't hit naturally. Like, that is a time when you're gonna need to supplement. So I don't think it's realistic for, like, every food out there to not have supplements.
Right.
Or in a situation where you're doing, like, an all life stages cat, or you'll see companies that don't use supplements for their adult foods. If they have a puppy specific formula, you're gonna see a lot more supplements. So, you'll just look at, like, why is this thing here, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's just the only way. Sometimes it's the only way without throwing other nutrients off because, it's all this scale of balancing. Um, and to go back to ADF, that's where, you change one thing in ADF and now you see, okay, now my choline is insufficient or now my vitamin D is through the roof. And it's all a putting the puzzle together sort of thing.
Fun choline story since you mentioned choline.
Yeah.
So and another benefit of doing lots of testing. So we actually did have to early on supplement choline, I think
Mhm.
just in our poultry formulas.
Okay.
And when we switched from organic certified humane eggs to fully pastured eggs, it
Mhm.
bumped up our choline levels to the point where we didn't have to supplement.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
Yeah, so it's like this stuff does move the needle a lot, changing different amounts of different foods or different
Mhm.
quality. Like you can really, it's, you'll read stuff about it, but
Yeah.
seeing it in real time through the testing is just so cool.
Well, and that's where, the original answers back when Jackie and Roxanne were running the show was a superior product because of their sourcing and because they had those fully pastured chickens and grass-fed animals and such. Um, Now, not so much.
Yeah, well, we got solutions. So
Now we have a solution, yes.
yeah, they're such a cool company.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
So if anybody, can you pop solutions in the chat for me, Diane or Janet? Um, Chelsea Kent, who kind of is spearheading the solutions team and owning the company, just is so dedicated and so knowledgeable and putting together some amazing products that go beyond the foods.
Oh, their goat milk is really cool.
Yeah. Well,
And
and they've
did
got
you eat the cheese last year?
the cheese,
Did you
yeah.
eat the cheese? Wasn't necessarily what I'd put out on Thanksgiving unless I really don't like my relatives, but
Mhm.
it was cool to be able to eat it.
Yeah, yeah,
A little gritty,
little bit.
but your dog's gonna love it.
Absolutely. And the gelatins and stuff, I mean, they have some really unique foods that, you know, bring some unique nutritional attributes together in an easy to use form.
And that's my pitch for a different company.
Yeah, you are not. So we should clarify while we're talking about your products, because you're an expert in your products, we're not excluding that there are other great
No,
companies out there.
absolutely, absolutely, and
And
I'm
that's
kinda
why,
joking. Yeah, and
have multiple companies come and, be at the expo because, maybe the Evermore products don't fit your dog, but the solutions ones do,
or
or
maybe you rotate them, which is cool too.
or yes, best of all worlds, because we know sometimes you can't get a certain product,
Well, and
it's
also variety's good. I think it's really rotationally fed, like, is the way to go. Like, personally,
Mhm.
I don't wanna eat one thing for the rest of my life.
No.
So, I don't think we should necessarily limit our dogs to that too. So, I always encourage rotation, and I'm always happy to to recommend brands that I like.
Yeah,
Solutions being
one of them.
one of them. Yeah, I think Solutions is great.
Yeah.
And I hope I get to see Roxanne again.
Yes, yes. Hopefully she'll be here.
Yeah, she's cool. Okay, back to oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Lori.
Yeah, we have almost been babbling along here by an hour. Well, we're here, so let's finish up zinc, and then you and I are gonna talk several more times between now and the expo.
Oh, Diane wants to know about my product, and actually, I should probably really quickly give the elevator pitch. Um, Evermore is a gently cooked food sold frozen. We use a low temperature sous vide cook process, so there's no like oxygen coming in that process, and it maintains the flavor and nutritional integrity of the food. We pride ourselves on our ingredient sourcing. We use all high welfare meats from from animals that are well raised. So our beef and our lamb is 100% grass fed from regenerative operations. Our
Mm.
chicken and our chicken is fully pastured now, actually, which is like super exciting. Oh, this was like this actually, as of last month, we haven't done like a big company announcement yet, but like now if you buy Evermore, you're getting fully pastured birds, and that's from certified organic.
That's
What
outstanding.
Yeah, which was and the ones before were what's known as like GAP step 3, like so we have animal welfare certifications on our poultry formula, and I believe we're going to get everything certified pretty soon. So that's really exciting. So we use high welfare meats, we use pastured eggs, 100% organic produce, and that organic hyaluronolleic safflower oil that I
Mhm.
was speaking to before, as well as MSC certified fish oil and the organic oats and barley, which I hope some of you've come around on both of these things. If you've had any preconceived notions or been hammered by a lot of information about it. But yeah, that is Evermore. It's gently cooked. It's sold frozen. We ship to 48 states. We will do Alaska and Hawaii if you ask us nicely and give us extra money for shipping. but and you
How
can
do
find
you ship to Hawaii?
we have shipped to Hawaii. I
That's
mean, FedEx does
that's
it. It does it costs money. Like I think when we ship to Hawaii, it does add like an extra like $100 or something to the shipping cost. So when people are in Hawaii, we recommend that they buy like a lot at a time.
yeah,
But we have
get
like
it
we have
together,
like
buy a bunch.
one we have like two people who've bought our food in Hawaii. So it's not something that we do very often. But yeah, so
Mhm.
we're sold frozen. We ship direct to consumer. Comes on dry ice, which
Mm.
is not carbon monoxide
Right,
for
right,
people
right.
you have no idea. You speaking of scientific literacy. Yeah, you can find us online at evermorepetfood.com, and you can follow us on Instagram at Evermore Pet Food, and on Facebook, it's evermore.pet.food for our page. So that's
Cool.
how you can find us. If there are questions that people had, that I didn't answer today, don't be a stranger. You can email them. I always say I'm going to look through the comments after these things and try to answer them. Half the times I remember.
Sometimes you do. Well, and somebody might watch this, 2 months from now.
Yeah, so it's
So never be shy about reaching out to a company and asking your questions.
yeah.
And as I said, we will be talking 3 more times between now and the expo. Right now, I have all of these live scheduled on Wednesdays and Fridays in this time slot, so we'll try to be consistent as I get the rest of the lineup assembled.
Okay, cool.
You jumped on and you were the first.
Oh, yay. I love these talks. One more question. It arrives frozen turkey. How much pound? So if you go on our website, you have the option to buy a la carte, meaning as a one-off, or you can put things on a subscription basis. We offer samplers, which are, if you just want to try the food, you don't want to commit to a lot at a time. That's 4 units. You can mix and match the flavors however you like. If you're doing a full size order, they start at 8 pounds. You can mix and match however you like. You can order after 8 pounds, you can order the food in any increment and mix and match however you like. Once you hit 16 pounds, you'll get a 5% discount off that base price. And then if you get 32 pounds, you'll get 10% off the base price. So we do like when people order more food because it's less individual things we have to send out.
Yeah,
But
exactly. And yeah, as long as you've got freezer space,
as long as you got the freezer space. We've had, and you probably know people who do this too. They'll just buy whole freezers for their dogs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
You have a freezer for your dog? Yeah. I actually had a freezer. I had a freezer. It's full of dog food, even though I don't have a dog anymore. So, um,
So,
cool.
yeah. So I'm just checking the questions. Uh, and yeah, so I think this has been great.
Yeah, I do too. Hope everyone's followed along the stream of consciousness that are our usual talks.
I always digress.
Yeah, as do I. So,
Yeah. All
cool.
right, guys. Well, we're going to run. Have yourself a fantastic Thanksgiving and share a little bit with your dog in a thoughtful manner. And we will see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Don't forget, tomorrow, the ticket pages will be open. Early bird special, VIP program, lots of upgrades, lots of cool new people coming. I'm really excited about this year's event.
You
So
too.
thank you and take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.